Daewon turned the key. The first thing he noticed was the scent. Sugared violet and damp paper. Not Jiwoo's. Not his. He walked toward the living room. He turned the corner. Jiwoo was on the couch. He was not alone. The woman across his lap had her shirt riding up over her hip. His shirt was unbuttoned at the top. 2 buttons. Their eyes found Daewon's at the same moment. Nobody moved. Then Jiwoo, the fluent voice already coming out, the voice that had talked Daewon back from the edge of leaving twice before, said, "Daewon, wait. This is not what it looks like. Before we go on, let me know in the comments where you are listening from. Now, settle in. This one is going to stay with you." To understand what Daewon did next, you have to understand who Daewon had always been. He was the older brother in a household where the warmth went one direction and the chores went the other. His parents loved him. He had never doubted that. But the love that came toward him came in the shape of a list. Take your sister to the doctor. Pick up the prescription. Sit with grandfather while your mother is out. Help with dinner. Do the dishes. He was good at all of it. He was the kind of child teachers wrote dependable about on report cards. He had decided, somewhere in adolescence, that being useful was the closest thing to being chosen, and he had built his whole life on that foundation, without ever quite naming it. He met Jiwoo in his mid-20s. It was at the kind of party where most of the conversations were boring, and most of the drinks were warm. Jiwoo was the bright thing in the corner of the room, telling a story to a group of people who were laughing on cue. Daewon had been about to leave. He had his coat in his hand. Jiwoo had crossed the room to him, not the other way, and had said something that was funnier than it should have been, and Daewon had put the coat back on the hook. Jiwoo was an alpha, and everything about him said it. Tall, easy in his body, the kind of voice that made other people stop talking and listen. He worked at a rehab clinic, doing physical therapy for athletes and weekend warriors, and his patients adored him, and his coworkers adored him, and within a month of meeting him, Daewon had started to suspect that the thing he had been raised to mistake for love, the steady accumulation of usefulness, had a glamorous cousin he had never met before. Being chosen by Jiwoo in those first weeks was a whole different drug. They moved in together fast. Faster than Daewon's friends thought was wise, though only one of them said so, and even she said it gently. Jiwoo's apartment was nicer than Daewon's. His furniture was nicer. His coffee machine was nicer. Daewon brought his books and his clothes and a single ceramic mug his mother had made in a community pottery class, and Jiwoo had laughed at the mug and put it on the highest shelf, where it stayed for the duration of the relationship, mostly clean and never used. The first one came at the 4-month mark. A coworker's name in Jiwoo's phone, only initials. A text at midnight that Daewon had seen because Jiwoo's phone had been on the kitchen counter and the screen had been on. Daewon had asked. Jiwoo had laughed it off, then sobered, then cried. A moment of weakness. One moment. A kiss in the parking lot at a work event after too much wine. It had ended that night. He would never. He had promised. He had begged. Daewon had stayed because 4 months in was too soon to give up on something, and because Jiwoo had been so devastated that it had felt cruel to make him pay forever for one moment, and because Daewon had, even then, been the kind of person who thought forgiveness was the right answer to almost every question. The next 8 months were the sweetest of the relationship. Jiwoo bought him flowers on Tuesdays for no occasion. Jiwoo dropped lunches off at Daewon's office and made jokes with the receptionist on the way out. Jiwoo made Daewon's friends fall in love with him at dinner parties so that, by month 6, Daewon's friends were the ones reminding him how lucky he was. Daewon believed them. Daewon believed it. The first one had been a lapse, an outlier, a thing that had been corrected. They were past it. The relationship was good. The relationship was, in fact, the best relationship Daewon had ever been in, and the periodic small voice that said, "You should not have stayed," was, he decided, the voice of a younger version of himself who had not yet learned that real love required real grace. They bonded a year and a half in. It was Jiwoo's idea. He brought it up in the kitchen one weekend morning, and the way he framed it made it sound less like a question and more like an inevitability they had been moving toward all along. The bond happened a few weeks later, during a heat, and Daewon had sobbed in Jiwoo's arms afterward, not from pain but from something closer to relief. Someone had finally chosen him. The proof was now in his body. He carried it with him every day, a quiet, warm hum in the center of his chest that said, "You are not alone. You are picked. You are home." The second one came almost exactly a year after the bond. He had found the charge while paying the credit card bill, which he always did, because Jiwoo was bad at that kind of paperwork. A hotel room downtown, at one night the weekend before, when Jiwoo had told him he was at a colleague's bachelor party. Daewon had asked. Jiwoo had been confused at first, then sheepish, then the soft laugh. He had been the designated driver, Jiwoo had explained, and the colleague had been too drunk to get home, and Jiwoo had decided the room was the safer call, and he had crashed there too because he had been tired, and it had not occurred to him to mention it because the room had been a logistical thing, not an event. He was sorry. He should have told Daewon. He had not wanted to worry him. Daewon had wanted to believe him. He had believed him, or he had believed him enough, which was a different thing. The bond made the believing easier. The bond was a presence in his chest that did not feel like the presence of a man who lied. Daewon had not yet learned that bonds were biology, not character. The bond did not know what Jiwoo did when he was not in the room. The bond only knew that Jiwoo, when he was in the room, was Jiwoo. So Daewon had stayed, and life had gone on. Jiwoo had been attentive. Jiwoo had been present. The flowers on Tuesdays had returned, and Jiwoo's mother had started inviting Daewon to family events. And Daewon had decided, without quite letting himself articulate it, that he was going to spend the rest of his life being grateful for what he had and quiet about what he had been afraid of. Almost 4 years into the relationship, an old college friend got married at a venue an hour outside the city, and Daewon went alone because Jiwoo could not get the weekend off work, and he flew home a day early to surprise his mate. And that was when this story actually starts. The flight had been delayed twice, and by the time the plane finally rolled to the gate, Daewon had stopped trying to keep his eyes open and had let his head rest against the cold window. The airport lights outside were a blur of orange and white. He had not slept on the plane. He had not slept at the wedding either, not really. The rehearsal dinner had run late, the morning had started early, the reception had gone until almost midnight, and somewhere between the toast and the photographs he had decided, on impulse, to fly home a day early instead of staying the second night at the hotel. He had not told Jiwoo. He wanted to surprise him. They had not seen each other in 5 days, which was a long time after almost 4 years of the same bed. He had spent the long stretches between the wedding events thinking about coming home and unlocking the door and finding Jiwoo on the couch in his old college sweatshirt, the one Jiwoo always wore at the end of a long week when he was tired and did not feel like going out. He had imagined how Jiwoo's face would change when he looked up. He had imagined the bond in his chest going from the quiet hum of distance to the warm settle of presence. He took an airport car home. The driver was quiet. Daewon watched the city slide past the window and felt the weight of his suitcase against his calf. For the first time in days, he was looking forward to something. The townhouse was dark from the street. That was not unusual. Jiwoo liked low lights. Daewon paid the driver, dragged his suitcase up the front step, and unlocked the door. The first thing he noticed was the scent in the entryway. It was not Jiwoo's. It was not his. It was sugared violet and damp paper, soft and unfamiliar, hanging in the air the way a stranger's perfume hangs in a room after they have left. Except it had not left. It was still there. Fresh. Recent. Recent enough that Daewon's body recognized it before his mind did, and the bond in his chest, which had been humming quietly for the entire drive, went quiet. He set the suitcase down by the door without thinking about why he was being quiet. The hallway light was off. A line of warmer light spilled from the living room. Daewon walked toward it, his coat still on, his keys still in his hand. He turned the corner into the living room. Jiwoo was on the couch. He was not alone. There was an Omega across his lap, a woman Daewon had never seen before, her shirt riding up over her hip, her hair loose. Her face turned toward the doorway in the same instant Jiwoo's did. Their eyes found Daewon's at the same moment, and for one long, stretched-out second, nobody moved. The Omega made a small sound, like air being let out. Jiwoo sat up so fast she nearly slid to the floor. He caught her elbow, steadied her, set her on the cushion beside him, and stood up. His shirt was unbuttoned at the top. 2 buttons. Daewon noticed without trying. "Daewon," Jiwoo said. His voice did the thing it always did. It dropped half a step. It softened. The fluent voice. The one that had, twice now, talked Daewon back from the edge of leaving. "Daewon, hey, wait. This is not what it looks like. Just listen. Just give me 1 second." Daewon did not say anything. The Omega on the couch was clutching one of the throw pillows against her chest. Her eyes moved between Daewon and Jiwoo. She did not speak. She looked very young and very pale. "This is a patient of mine," Jiwoo said, still in that voice. "She had a panic attack at the clinic. She did not have anyone to call. I brought her here because I did not want to leave her at the office alone. Daewon, I know what this looks like. I do. But please, sit down. Let me explain." Daewon looked at the Omega's shirt. Daewon looked at Jiwoo's shirt. Daewon looked at the bedroom door, which was open at the end of the hall, and the lamp on the nightstand, which was on, and which had not been on when Daewon had left for the wedding, because Daewon had turned it off himself. He did not say anything. He walked past Jiwoo, past the Omega on the couch, down the hallway, and into the bedroom. The bed was unmade. The duvet was turned down on Jiwoo's side. There was a hairband on the floor that did not belong to either of them. The pillow on Daewon's side smelled very faintly of sugared violet and damp paper. He stood in the doorway for 1 breath. Then he walked to the closet, took down his suitcase from the shelf, opened it on the bed, and started moving clothes into it. "Daewon." Jiwoo was in the doorway now. "Daewon, baby. Come on. Come sit down. You have been on a plane all night. You are exhausted. You are not seeing this clearly. Just sit down for 1 minute and let me talk to you." Daewon opened the top drawer of the dresser. Underwear, socks. He scooped a handful of each into the suitcase. "You are going to feel ridiculous in the morning," Jiwoo said. He was using the soft laugh now, the one that had always been his closer. "I promise you. I promise. This is not what you think. She is a patient. I would not. I would never. After everything we have been through, you really think I would do this to you? In our home? You really think that little of me?" Daewon opened the second drawer. T-shirts. He took the ones on top. "Look at me," Jiwoo said. And there was an edge in it now, the small edge that always came when the soft voice was not working. "Daewon, look at me." Daewon did not look at him. "Okay." Jiwoo took a step into the room. His scent shifted. The bay rum sharpened. "Okay, you are upset. I get it. But you are also being unfair right now. You walked in on a situation and you are jumping to a conclusion without letting me say a single word. Do you know how that feels? After 4 years? Do you know how it feels to have my partner not even give me the benefit of the doubt?" The pivot. There it was. The same pivot as before. Daewon had heard it twice. He recognized it the moment it started. He closed the suitcase. He zipped it. "Daewon." He picked up the suitcase by the handle and turned around. Jiwoo was standing in the bedroom doorway, blocking it. Daewon waited. "You are not going to leave," Jiwoo said. "You are going to sit down. We are going to talk. We are going to figure this out the way we always do. Okay?" Daewon did not say anything. The seconds stretched. Jiwa's face moved through several expressions, none of which settled. Finally, slowly, he stepped aside. Daewon walked past him, down the hallway, past the living room, where the Omega was now standing, half behind the couch, holding her shoes in one hand. She looked at Daewon. Daewon did not look back. He had nothing to say to her. She was, as far as he could tell from the look on her face, finding out something at the same time he was, and there would be a day, weeks from now, when he might feel sorry for that. Tonight was not that day. He reached the front door. He set down the suitcase to free his hand for the doorknob. Jiwoo's hand closed around his wrist. Daewon looked at the hand on his wrist. Jiwoo, after a beat, let go. "Please," Jiwoo said. The voice was different now. Lower. Real, maybe, for the first time in the last 20 minutes. Or doing a good impression of it. "Please, don't go like this. Don't let me wake up tomorrow and find out you left without letting me explain. I will lose my mind." Daewon picked up the suitcase. He opened the door. He stepped into the hallway. He turned around. Jiwoo was standing in the doorway of the home they had built. The Omega was behind him in the living room, frozen. Daewon spoke for the first time since walking in. "You promised," he said. He closed the door. He walked down the hallway to the elevator. He pressed the button. He waited. The hallway was very quiet. The bond in his chest, which had been quiet since he had turned the corner into the living room, started to ache. A dull, steady ache, like a bruise pressed on. The elevator arrived. He got in. The doors closed. He took out his phone. He blocked Jiwoo's number. He blocked Jiwoo's email. He blocked Jiwoo on the messaging app they used for the grocery list. He blocked Jiwoo on the photo-sharing app where they had 4 years of weekend breakfasts and the trip to the lake last summer, and the morning Jiwoo had bought him a plant for his desk, and they had taken a picture of it on the windowsill. He blocked Jiwoo on every shared platform he could think of, methodically, scrolling through each app and pressing each button while the elevator descended. By the time the doors opened on the ground floor, Jiwoo was no longer a person his phone could find. He walked out into the parking lot. The cold hit him in the face. He stood under the streetlight with his suitcase at his feet and looked up at the building he had lived in for almost 4 years and realized he did not have anywhere to go. He thought about that for a moment. He had a key to nowhere else. His name was on a lease that he was about to walk away from. The townhouse was the only address he had used since he was 25. He took out his phone. He pulled up the map. He found a hotel near the airport, the kind that took late check-ins. He booked a room from the parking lot. He called another car. While he waited, he did not look at the building. He looked at the curb. He looked at his shoes. He looked at the small puddle of melted slush near the storm drain where someone had stamped out a cigarette. He understood, distantly, that he was making himself look at small, ordinary things on purpose, so that he would not look up at the bedroom window 2 floors above him, where a lamp was still on that he had not turned on. The car came. He got in. He gave the driver the hotel address. He sat in the back seat with his hands flat on his knees and tried not to think about the smell of sugared violets. The driver said nothing. The bond in his chest ached and would not stop aching, and Daewon understood then, in a way he had not understood in the parking lot, that this was the easy part. The hotel room had the impersonal cleanliness of a place no one had lived in. Pale wallpaper. A folded towel arranged into a triangle on the edge of the bed. The faint chemical sweetness of whatever cleaner the housekeeping crew had used. Daewon dropped his suitcase against the wall and stood in the middle of the room with his coat still on, because taking the coat off felt like committing to being there, and committing to being there meant accepting that he was. He sat on the edge of the bed. He stared at the wall. The bond in his chest pulled. It was a physical pull, like a hand had reached into the space behind his sternum and was tugging on something attached to the back of his ribs, pulling him in the direction of the townhouse, pulling him toward Jiwoo. The pull was steady, low-grade, undeniable, and Daewon understood that this was what the books called the homing reflex. Bonded omegas separated from their alphas felt it as a directional sense. Their bodies knew where their alpha was, and the not being there with them registered as a physical wrong. He had read about it once, years ago, before he had been bonded. He had not really understood it then. He understood it now. He sat on the edge of the hotel bed and let the pull and refused to move toward it. He thought about the sugared violet on his pillow. He thought about Jiwoo's hand on his wrist. He thought about the Omega holding her shoes by the couch, the shock on her face. He thought about how his own face must have looked when he turned the corner. He let the pattern lay itself out in front of him for the first time without flinching. 2 times he had known about. The first one Jiwoo had ended. The second one Jiwoo had explained away. The third one had been on the couch tonight with a shirt unbuttoned at the top, and Daewon understood now that there had probably been a 4th and a 5th and a 6th that he had not seen, and that the time between the things he had seen had not been faithful, it had only been careful. He pulled out his phone. The screen lit up with missed calls and a stack of voicemails, all from numbers that were not blocked because they had never been Jiwoo's directly. People from Jiwoo's life. People Daewon had been polite to at parties. He blocked them all. He went into his contacts and worked through every name systematically, blocking anyone whose connection to him had come through Jiwoo. He did not read the voicemails. When his phone was clean, he set it face down on the nightstand. He took off his coat. He went into the bathroom and drank water from a paper cup that had been wrapped in plastic. He did not turn on the light. He looked at himself in the dim shape of the mirror and could not see his own face, only a darker outline against the wallpaper. He went back to the bed. He lay down on top of the comforter, fully clothed. He pulled the corner of the bedspread over himself. The bond pulled. The bond pulled. The bond pulled. He closed his eyes and did not sleep. By morning, he had decided 2 things. He was not going back to that apartment, and he was going to handle this himself, because there was no one in his life he was willing to make watch. He called the building manager from the hotel room. He explained in a level voice that he was breaking the lease. He cited the specific clause that allowed it. He paid the early termination fee on his card. He arranged a moving crew to come in a few days while Jiwoo would be at work, with a list of what was his. He found a smaller place across town through a posting at his office building and signed for it on the same day he saw it. The new apartment had cheap cabinets and a window that looked out at the side of another building, and he liked it because it was nothing like the townhouse, and he had picked it himself, and there was no version of his old life living inside its walls. He moved his clothes and his books and the few pieces of furniture he had owned before the bond. Everything else he left. When Jiwoo's mother showed up at his new door later that week with a casserole and an offer to mediate, Daewon answered with the chain still on. He told her, in a voice he had not known he possessed, that she could leave the casserole or take it with her, but she was not coming inside, and she was not going to see him, now or ever, and that any further visits would be reported to the building. He closed the door. He listened to her stand in the hallway for a long moment. He listened to her footsteps walk away. He left the casserole where she set it. The cleaning crew took it out the next morning. The fever started a few days in. He woke in his new bed with his sheets soaked through and his hair plastered to his forehead, and the bond mark on the side of his neck swollen and tender to the touch. He understood, in a distant way, that his body had begun the uncoupling. He had read about it in the hours after the discovery, because he had needed to know what was coming so that nothing about it could surprise him into going back. He had read the medical literature. He had read the anecdotal accounts on Omega forums. He had read, in the brisk informational tone of a clinic pamphlet, that bond decay through chosen separation was a slow process. Weeks of it, with the worst symptoms in the first stretch. The bond mark would inflame and bruise and slowly fade. Fever and scent dysregulation and the homing reflex were the 3 primary indicators that the body was beginning to release. He had read that the homing reflex was the symptom that broke most people, the body's certainty that the alpha was, geographically, in a specific direction, and the irrationality of standing in a kitchen in the middle of the night being absolutely sure that walking out the door and going east would solve every problem the body had. He stayed. He stayed through the fever. He stayed through the sweats and the nausea, and the night he came back to his senses sitting on his own bathroom floor in the middle of the night, fully dressed, his shoes on, his keys in his hand with no memory of having gotten up. He set the keys down on the tile beside him. He did not stand. He sat with his back against the side of the bathtub and he said it out loud to the empty bathroom, in the same voice he used when he was correcting his own work at his desk. You do not want to go to him. The words sounded ridiculous in the silence. He said them again anyway. You do not want to go to him. He kept saying it, quietly. He said it until it stopped sounding ridiculous and started sounding true. He said it until his breathing slowed. He said it until he could pick up the keys, walk to the kitchen, drop them in the bowl by the door, and go back to bed. He cried for the first time the next morning, sitting at his own kitchen table with a cup of tea he had made himself and could not bring himself to drink. He cried hard. There was no one to hear it, and no one to hold him through it. And that was how it had to be. He had been raised to be the responsible one. He had spent his life being useful for other people. He had never had to do this part for himself before. He did it. He believed himself by afternoon. The fever broke a few days later. The bond mark went from purple to a dull red-brown. His scent, which had been overwhelmingly metallic for the worst stretch of the week, started to come back to itself, the white tea note returning underneath the iron. He could eat again. He could read again. He went back to work. His office was a healthcare analytics company in a building downtown, on a floor that smelled like printer toner and recycled coffee. He had been a senior analyst there for years now. The work was the kind of work that filled a brain completely while it was happening and emptied out of you the moment you closed your laptop, which had always been one of its features. He sat at his desk and built dashboards and ran queries and did not think about Ji-woo for stretches at a time. His colleague at the desk across from his had been watching him. She had been at his desk every morning for a week with a cup of coffee that he had not asked for. She did not bring it up. She did not ask him what was wrong. She set the cup down, said good morning, and went back to her own desk, and that small kindness, every day, was the kind of thing that kept him coming in. She was a beta, mid-30s, married, the kind of person who had a calendar reminder set for everyone in the office's birthday and remembered which mug each of them preferred. She was Daewon's closest friend at work, and one of the only people he had ever told about the first cheating 2 years ago, in a low moment over wine at the annual holiday party. She had not pushed when he had stayed. She did not push now. It took her a long time after he came back to bring it up. She found him in the small kitchen on their floor at the end of the week when most people had already left. He was rinsing his mug. She came in and started the espresso machine, and did not say anything until he had set the mug in the dish rack. I am going to say something and I want you to let me finish, she said. Okay. You look like a ghost. Thank you. I am not done. You look like a ghost, and I have been letting you be a ghost because that is what people need sometimes. But it has been a while now, and you are not getting less ghost-like. You are getting more ghost-like, and I cannot keep watching it without saying something. Okay. I want to set you up with someone. He laughed. The sound of it surprised both of them. No, he said. Hear me out. No, I cannot. I am still releasing the bond. I cannot date someone right now. I cannot even imagine being in a room with a stranger right now. That is exactly why you should. That makes no sense. It makes sense, and I am going to explain. You are sitting in your apartment every weekend trying not to think about him. The trying is the problem. The trying is what is keeping the channel open. You need a different channel. You need to go to a wine bar and have a drink with a person who is not him, and you need to come home and lie in bed thinking about that person instead of him. And that is how you start to let your brain rewire. That is a deeply unromantic theory of dating. I am a deeply unromantic person, and I have been married for 9 years. He almost smiled. She caught it and pressed. His name is Owen. He is the older brother of my partner's roommate, which I know sounds like a setup from a sitcom, but it is genuinely the connection. I have met him twice. He is a software developer. He works mostly from home. He is into whatever it is you are into with the spreadsheets and the keyboards. He is quiet. He is awkward. He is the most genuinely decent person I have met in a while. He is the opposite of Jiwoo in every way that matters, and I am saying that with both hands on the table. He sounds great. I am not ready. You will not be ready. Nobody is ever ready. You go anyway and you order a drink, and if it is terrible, you leave after one, and if it is not terrible, you stay for two. That is the entire plan. There is no second date in the plan. There is just the one drink. Why are you doing this? Because I love you, and I cannot watch you disappear. Also because Owen has been single for a long time and has the energy of a man who would be very kind to someone who needed kindness. And you need kindness, so the math works. He looked at her. She looked back. She had the expression of a person who had made up her mind weeks ago and was only now telling him about it. One drink, he said. One drink. If it is terrible, I leave. If it is terrible, you leave. I am not going to like him. You do not have to like him. You just have to sit in a room with him for an hour and not think about Jiwoo. He went home that night and lay on his back in his new apartment, a smaller place across town from the townhouse, and stared at the ceiling and tried to imagine being in a room with a stranger. He could not. He tried to imagine putting on a shirt that was not the one he had been wearing all week. He could not. He tried to imagine the sound of his own voice introducing himself to someone new and felt something close to nausea. He went anyway. Months had passed since the night in the parking lot. The bond mark on his neck had faded from red-brown to a thin silver line. The fever had not come back. The pull was still there, but quieter, manageable. Like a chronic injury becomes manageable. Not because it is healed, but because the body has learned to walk around it. The wine bar was in a neighborhood Daewon had not been to in years, which had been deliberate on his colleague's part. Not Jiwoo's neighborhood. Not Daewon's old neighborhood. Somewhere new. Daewon arrived a few minutes early because he was always a few minutes early, and he stood outside the door for a long moment before going in, and then he went in. The man at the table by the window was already there. He was sitting in the seat that faced the door. He was scrolling on his phone with the screen tilted down toward his lap, the way someone does when they are trying not to look like they are waiting. He had dark hair, a little overgrown at the front, and he was wearing a button-down shirt that looked like it had been ironed that afternoon. The collar was a little stiff. There was a small piece of price tag plastic still attached to the cuff. Daewon noticed it and felt something in his chest do a small, unfamiliar thing. He walked over. The man looked up. The man stood up too fast and the chair scraped against the floor. "Daewon," the man said. He extended a hand. Then, halfway through extending it, he seemed to reconsider because they had not been introduced, and a handshake was strange, but a hug was stranger, and he froze with his hand halfway out. Daewon took the hand, shook it, sat down. The scent registered in the second between sitting and looking up. It was not what he had expected. Daewon had spent 4 years inside a scent profile of bay rum and dry tobacco, the polished kind, the kind a person chose. This man's scent was nothing like that. It was a struck match smoke, faint, like the memory of smoke rather than smoke itself. Underneath was something green and bitter, almost vegetal, the way a walnut hull smells when it is fresh. Underneath that was something warm and quiet, like clean wool. The whole thing was alive in a way Daewon's body recognized before his mind did, and the bond mark on his neck did a small, involuntary twinge that he hated. He looked up at the man's face. "Sorry," the man said. "I am Owen. I should have led with that. I just stood up and stuck my hand out like a person being introduced at a job interview. Let me start over." He sat down. He took a breath. "Hi, I am Owen. It is nice to meet you. Please ignore the first 30 seconds. Daewon, against every expectation he had carried into the room, smiled. It was a small smile. It was barely a smile. It was the corner of his mouth moving without permission. But it was the first smile in a long time, and Owen saw it land. Something in his face eased. "Okay," Owen said, sitting back. "Okay, I will take that. We are off to a slightly less catastrophic start than I was planning for. Can I get you a drink? They have a wine list. I do not actually know anything about wine. I was going to order whatever you ordered and pretend I had picked it intentionally." "Red," Daewon said. "Red. Good. I will tell the server with confidence, like I have opinions. Watch this." He raised a hand at the bartender and managed to look authoritative for half a second before he caught Daewon's eye and broke. He laughed at himself. Daewon again almost smiled. The drinks came. They were both red. Owen had ordered them with a great deal of unnecessary specificity, which the bartender had patiently translated into 2 glasses of the house red. Owen took a sip and made a face that suggested he did not, in fact, like wine, and set the glass down. "Okay," Owen said. "I have to be honest. Your friend told me that your last few months have been hard, and I asked her not to tell me anything else, because it felt like that was your story, to tell or not tell. So I do not have any information. I just have a name and a face and a strong suspicion that a wine bar was the wrong venue, because I do not know anything about wine, and you look like a person who deserves a better drink than the house red." Daewon looked at him. Owen, after a beat, looked alarmed. "That came out worse than I meant it. I meant that that you deserve, okay? Let me try one more time. I am a software developer. I have not been on a date in a long time. I am going to say things wrong for at least the first 30 minutes. I am asking for grace in advance." "Okay," Daewon said. "Okay? Okay, granted." Owen exhaled. It was the first real exhale he had taken since Daewon had walked in. "Thank you." Genuinely. They drank their wine. They talked. They talked about, of all things, keyboards. Owen mentioned, embarrassed, that he built mechanical keyboards as a hobby, and Daewon, who had been pricing one for himself for almost a year, started asking specific technical questions, and Owen visibly relaxed. He always relaxed when the conversation moved to something he actually knew. They talked about Daewon's job, which Owen, alone among the people in Daewon's life, asked actual technical questions about, because Owen had built dashboards before and knew enough about data pipelines to have informed opinions on them. They argued briefly and gently about Python's type system. Owen thought it was getting better. Daewon thought it was getting messier. Neither of them changed the other's mind. Both of them enjoyed it. The wine was bad. The conversation was good. Daewon said, after a long, quiet stretch in which Owen had ordered them both water, "I should tell you something before this goes anywhere." Owen set down his glass. "Okay. I was bonded. I left him a few months ago. I am still releasing the bond. I have a mark on my neck that is mostly faded, but not entirely. My body is not entirely my own yet. I do not know what I can offer right now. I am telling you because you should know before you decide anything about a second drink, much less a second date." Owen listened. He did not interrupt. He did not perform sympathy. When Daewon was done, he was quiet for a moment, and Daewon could see him thinking. And then he said, "Thank you for telling me. I am sorry that happened to you. I want to ask one question, and then I am going to say one thing. Is that okay?" "Yes." "Did he hurt you?" "He cheated on me. Repeatedly. The last time I caught him in the act. He has spent 4 years convincing me I was misreading things that were exactly what they looked like." Owen was quiet for a longer moment. His jaw, which had not done anything notable before, set itself slightly. Then he relaxed it deliberately and said, "Okay, here is the one thing. I do not want to date someone who is hiding a thing like that from me. I do want to date someone who tells me. So if you want to do this, we go at whatever pace you say. You tell me what you can offer, and I will believe you when you tell me. And if at any point you cannot do it, you tell me that too, and I will believe you about that. Is that something you can work with? Daewon looked at him for a long time. Yes, he said. Okay. I do not want a second drink tonight. The wine is bad. The wine is terrible. But I would like to do this again. Owen smiled. It was not the rehearsed smile from the first 30 seconds. It was a real one. Quiet. Slow. Surprised by itself. Okay, he said. They paid the check. They put on their coats. They walked out of the wine bar into the cold spring night. And Owen, who had clearly thought about this part in advance and then forgotten what he had thought, hesitated on the sidewalk before settling on a small wave and a good night that came out a little too formal. Daewon, who had not laughed at anything for months, almost laughed. He walked to his car. He sat in the driver's seat for a long moment with his hands on the wheel and his keys in his lap. The bond mark on his neck was quiet. The pull was there, but it was not pulling. He thought about Owen's face when he had made the joke about the wine. He thought about the small piece of price tag plastic on the cuff of the new shirt. He thought about how Owen had said, "I will believe you when you tell me," and how nobody in his entire life had ever made being believed sound like a default position rather than a thing he had to earn. He drove home. He did not think about Jiwoo all the way home. He did not realize, until he was in his apartment with his coat off, that this was the first evening in a long time in which Jiwoo had not been the loudest thing in his head. He stood in the kitchen for a long time with the lights off and the city humming outside the window, and he understood, quietly, that he had taken one step. He did not yet know what it cost to take a second. The second date was coffee. Owen had texted him the morning after the wine bar, mid-morning, like someone who has been waiting until a respectable hour and has not quite managed to wait long enough. The message was brief. It said it had been nice to meet him, that he hoped Daewon had gotten home safely, and that if Daewon still wanted to do this again, Owen knew a place where the coffee was better than the wine. Daewon read the message at his desk. He read it twice. He set the phone face down. He worked for an hour. He picked the phone back up and read it a third time. He typed out 3 different replies, deleted all of them, and finally wrote, "Saturday afternoon. You pick the place." Owen replied within a minute. Then, as if catching himself, did not reply again for the rest of the day. Daewon found this charming, which surprised him. The coffee shop was small and quiet and tucked into a corner of a neighborhood Daewon had also never been to, which he understood after a few minutes was deliberate on Owen's part. New places. No memory geography. Owen was sitting at a table near the back when Daewon came in, and this time he did not stand up too fast. He raised a hand, small and steady, and Daewon walked over and sat down across from him. "Hi," Owen said. "Hi." "I ordered nothing yet because I did not know what you drink and I did not want to guess. Black coffee. Drip if they have it." "Drip if they have it. Got it. I will be back." He went to the counter. Daewon watched him stand in line with his hands in his pockets, slightly hunched, the way people stand when they are trying not to take up too much space. He came back with 2 cups and set Daewon's down carefully so as not to spill. "They had drip," Owen said. "Thank you. Also, they had a cookie that looked good. I got one. It is between us. We can share. If you do not want any, I will eat the whole thing and feel weird about it." Daewon took half the cookie. They talked. The conversation was easier than the wine bar conversation because the wine bar conversation had broken the worst of the ice, and the coffee shop did not require either of them to start from nothing. Owen asked about Daewon's week. Daewon answered. Daewon asked about Owen's week. Owen answered. There was a long stretch when they talked about a documentary they had both seen, separately, about the deep ocean, and Owen got animated talking about a particular species of jellyfish that he found stupid in a way that he loved, and Daewon laughed twice. He noted it both times. He had not laughed in his own apartment in months. He had laughed twice in the same hour at this man. After about an hour, Owen said carefully, "I want to ask you a question, and I want to do it badly so that you can hear me trying. Is that okay? Okay. How are you? Today. Right now. Not in general. I am not asking the big how are you. I am asking the small one. Daewon thought about it. He had been thinking about how to answer the big how are you for months, and the question of the small one had not occurred to him, and the smallness of it loosened something. Today is okay, he said. The mark has been quiet this week. I slept the whole night last night. I had a meeting this morning that did not annoy me. I came here. The coffee is good. That is a good answer. Thank you. I was prepared for a worse one. I was too. The conversation went on. They talked about Owen's apartment, which he described with unflattering accuracy as a software developer's apartment, by which he meant that there were 3 monitors in the living room and a mechanical keyboard collection on a shelf and almost no art on the walls. Daewon, who had spent 4 years inside a townhouse in which the throw pillows had been chosen by a man who cared a great deal about throw pillows, found the description restful. I should warn you, Owen said, if you ever come over, which is a long way off. I am not pretending it is not a long way off, but if you do. The kitchen is mostly an unused room. I cook, but only 1 or 2 things and not well. What do you cook? Eggs, and a stir-fry that my mother taught me, which she would deny ever teaching me if she ate it. That is 2 things. It is 2 things. What about coffee? I have a machine. It is a good machine. It is the one piece of the kitchen I respect. I will accept coffee from you. Good. That is a low bar that I can clear. They left after the 2nd cup. Owen walked Daewon to his car this time, which had not been agreed to but happened anyway, and at the car he hesitated again, and Daewon, who had been thinking about it for the last half hour, leaned in slightly and let his shoulder bump against Owen's. Briefly. Once. The smallest possible contact. Owen did not move for a moment. Then he said very quietly, "Okay. Drive safe." Daewon drove home and did not realize again until he was inside that he had spent the entire drive smiling at nothing. The dates accumulated, slowly, carefully. 2 people building small habits when neither of them is in a rush. There was another date after that, a walk by the lake one afternoon that turned colder than either of them had dressed for. Owen lent Daewon his scarf, which Daewon did not give back for a long while, and which spent that long while on Daewon's hook by his door, and which carried Owen's scent into the apartment in a way that was a small daily kindness Daewon had not asked for and could not bring himself to wash out. There was another after that, dinner at a small Italian place where the food was good and the lights were low, and Owen halfway through the meal said, "I am bad at this part. The looking at you across a candle part. Do you mind if I lean back so I do not have a candle in my face?" There was another after that, at Owen's apartment. Daewon had agreed to come over for the badly cooked stir-fry. The apartment was exactly as Owen had described it. 3 monitors in the living room, keyboards on a shelf, almost no art. A small framed photograph on a side table of a woman Daewon understood, without asking, to be Owen's mother. Owen cooked the stir-fry, which was edible but assertively garlicky, and they ate it on the couch with bowls in their laps and watched something Daewon did not pay attention to, because he was paying attention to Owen's hands and how he held his bowl, and how, when he was concentrating, he made small sounds of agreement that he did not seem aware of. Halfway through the show, Daewon set his bowl down on the coffee table. "Can I do something?" he said. Owen looked at him. "Yes. You do not know what I am going to do. I trust you." Daewon leaned across and pressed his forehead against the side of Owen's neck, where the scent gland was. He did not open his mouth. He did not move. He just rested there for a long moment and let himself breathe. The struck match smoke was faint, as it always was. The walnut hull was strong, alive, a little sharp. Underneath was the wool. Daewon's own scent rose to meet it, ink and tea, and for the first time the two combined into something neither of them carried alone, something paper, something wood smoke, something cold and warm at the same time. Owen did not move. His hand, which had been on the bowl, set the bowl down very slowly. He did not put his hand on Daewon. He let Daewon stay there for as long as Daewon wanted to. After a long time, Daewon pulled back. "Okay," he said. "Okay. That was something I needed to know." "What did you need to know?" "What you smell like when I am close." Owen exhaled. He looked for a second like a man who had been holding something for longer than was reasonable. And you smell like a person. That is a low bar to clear." "Not for me right now. It is the highest bar in the world." He kissed Owen then. The first one. It was brief and a little awkward, because Owen had not been expecting it, and his head was at the wrong angle, and Daewon had to adjust mid-motion, and they bumped noses, and Owen made a small embarrassed sound, and Daewon, almost laughing, pulled back enough to fix the angle and tried again. The second attempt was better. Owen's breath caught. His hand finally moved, came up, settled on the back of Daewon's neck, careful, very careful, like he was out of practice and did not want to get it wrong. Daewon pulled back. He looked at Owen's face. Owen's face had done a small, undone thing. "Yeah," Owen said. "Yes. That is. Yes. That is fine. That is good." Daewon almost laughed. "You sound like you are filing a report." "I am filing a report. The report is favorable." "Owen." "Yes. I am going to go home now, because if I stay I will keep doing that, and I want to do this slowly, and slow does not mean what it usually means for me right now. I know what it means. Go home. I will see you Wednesday." Wednesday. She drove home. He did not stop smiling. He realized at a stoplight that the bond mark on his neck had not done anything in days. Not a twinge. Not an ache. He pressed his fingers to it at the red light. The skin was almost smooth under his fingertips, only a thin silver line where the swelling had been. He understood with a quiet certainty that something had finished. He understood with the same certainty that something else had begun. Spring became spring properly. The lake went from gray to gray-blue. Daewon's apartment, which had felt like a temporary box for the first several months, started to acquire the quiet markers of a place that someone lived in. Hannah, a throw blanket on the couch, a second mug on the drying rack, which appeared the morning after Owen's first sleepover, and which Daewon did not put away. A small plant on the windowsill that he did not yet trust himself to keep alive. Owen stayed over twice a week, then 3 times, then more. They had not talked about it. It had simply happened, slowly, when neither person was in a rush, and both of them kept finding reasons to stay. He brought his laptop. He worked from Daewon's kitchen table. Daewon, on the days he worked from home, would come out of his office for water and find Owen in headphones, frowning at a screen, occasionally muttering at code that had displeased him, and Daewon would stand in the doorway for a moment and look at him, and feel, very faintly, the kind of quiet that he had spent his entire life trying to manufacture. They told each other things slowly. Owen told Daewon about his mother, who had been ill for most of his 20s, and about how the years of taking care of her had made him into the kind of adult who knew how to hold a fever-warm forehead, and which medications did not mix, and how to call a pharmacy at midnight and convince them to stay open another 5 minutes. He told Daewon, with some difficulty, that he had not dated seriously since college, partly because of his mother and partly because, after she had stabilized, he had not known what to want. He had been needed for a long time. He was not used to being wanted in a regular way, and was still figuring out how to act when somebody wanted him. Daewon told Owen about the first time, about the second, about the years between and after, about the gaslight, the shape of it, the particular voice Jiwoo used when he was about to talk Daewon out of a thing he had seen with his own eyes. He told him about the time, 2 years in, when he had stood in his own kitchen at midnight after the second confession and decided to forgive, and how that had been the worst thing he had ever done to himself, because after that he had stopped trusting his own eyes about anything. Owen listened. He did not interrupt. He did not editorialize. When Daewon was done, he said, "I am not going to do that to you. I want you to know that as a fact, not as a promise. Promises did not work for him. So I am telling you as a fact. Okay. I am not perfect. I will mess up. I will say things wrong. I will forget your coworker's name even though you have told me twice, but I am not going to do that to you. That specific thing. Ever. Daewon nodded. He did not say anything for a long time. Owen did not push. They sat on the couch and Owen put his arm along the back of it, not around Daewon, just resting there. And Daewon, after a long while, leaned into it. The bond mark on his neck was almost gone now. A faint silver thread. The pull, which had been the loudest thing in his body for months, had finally gone quiet. He had not thought about Ji-woo for entire days. He had started to believe cautiously that the worst of it was behind him. He was wrong. It was a quiet evening when it happened. Late spring, almost summer, the kind of evening when the air finally smelled like something other than cold. Owen had come over for dinner. They had cooked together. Owen had cut vegetables badly, and Daewon had teased him about it, and Owen had said with great dignity that he was a software developer, not a knife handler. And Daewon had laughed, and Owen had set down the knife and kissed him in the kitchen, and they had eaten, and they had cleaned up together, and it had all been so ordinary and so good that Daewon had not for a single second been on alert. Owen was leaving. Daewon walked him to the door. They stepped out into the hallway because Owen had a tendency to forget his coat, and Daewon had a tendency to remember it for him. And Owen was in the middle of saying something about a project at work when the elevator at the end of the hall opened. Ji-woo stepped out. He had flowers. For one stretched-out second, all three of them stood in the hallway and looked at each other. Daewon's bond mark, which had been silver and quiet for weeks, twinged. He hated his body for it. He hated it instantly. He hated it like you hate a part of yourself that has betrayed you in a small way you cannot publicly admit to. Daewon, Ji-woo said. Owen's hand, which had been resting on his own coat pocket, went very still. Ji-woo. Daewon's voice came out level. He did not know how. What are you doing here? Ji-woo took a step forward. Owen took half a step in front of Daewon without seeming to notice he had done it. Daewon put his hand flat against Owen's chest. Owen stopped. Ji-woo, who had been looking at Owen with something that was not quite a question, looked back at Daewon. Please. Please. Daewon, just 5 minutes. I have been calling for months. You have been blocking everyone. I had to come here. I would not have come if there was any other way, please. How did you know where I lived? Your friend from work, the one who set you up with him. I ran into her partner at the gym. I asked. I told them it was for a gift. I am sorry. I know that is bad, but please, just listen. Daewon's hand on Owen's chest stayed where it was. I am not going to listen, Daewon said. I told you. We are done. I told you with my own mouth. I blocked you so that you could not keep telling me you had something to say. The point of blocking you was that I did not need you to say it. I have been in therapy. Good. I have not. I have not seen anyone since you, not her, not anyone. I am not asking for anything. I am just asking you to read what I have been writing. I have been writing you letters. Every day. I have a folder on my computer of letters I have not been able to send because you blocked the email. That is not romantic. I know. It is not romantic, and I do not want to read them. Owen, beside him, was very quiet. The match note in his scent had sharpened in a way Daewon had not seen before. Daewon. Ji-woo took another step. I will leave. I will leave right now. I am not going to come back. I need you to do one thing for me. One thing. Unblock me. So I can send you what I have written. Read it or do not read it, but I need to be able to send it. I cannot live with knowing there is no channel. Daewon recognized the ask for what it was, the smallness of it, the framing as the lightest possible request, the reliance on his guilt about being unreasonable, the fact that, if he agreed, it would give Ji-woo a key back into a door Daewon had spent months sealing. He almost said no. He almost said it cleanly. But the bond mark on his neck pulled again, smaller this time, and he hesitated. The hesitation was less than a breath. It was barely a hesitation, but he felt it, and he hated it, and he understood in the same moment that Owen had felt it too, because Owen's hand very quietly came up and rested against Daewon's lower back. Just there, not pushing. Daewon looked at Jaiwoo. He looked at the flowers. He looked at the careful arrangement of Jaiwoo's face, which was doing the apology version, which was the version Daewon had seen most. "Okay," he heard himself say. Owen's hand on his back did not move. "I will unblock you, so you can send what you want to send. Send it tonight. Once. Whatever you have to say. After tonight I am blocking you again, and that is permanent, and you are not coming to my building again. If you come here again, I am calling the police, and I am filing a restraining order. Do you understand?" Jiwoo nodded. Quickly. Too quickly. Like a man who had just been handed a thing he had not expected to get. "Yes. Yes. I understand. Thank you. Thank you. I will send it tonight. Go." He hesitated. He looked at the flowers in his hand like he had forgotten they were there. "Take them with you," Daewon said. "Or leave them in the hallway. I do not want them." Jiwoo, after a beat, set the flowers down on the carpet outside the elevator. He did not say anything else. He walked to the elevator. He pressed the button. He stood with his back to them while the elevator came, which felt somehow worse than if he had been looking at them. The doors opened. He stepped in. The doors closed. The hallway was very quiet. Daewon turned to Owen. "I have to go inside." "Okay. Will you stay?" "Yes." "Wait." "No." "Will you wait? Out here. For 1 minute. I need to be alone for 1 minute. And then, will you come in?" "Yes." He went inside. He closed the door. He stood in his own entryway for a long moment with his hands flat against his own thighs and his eyes closed and tried to make himself breathe. The bond mark twinged one more time. Smaller. Quieter. Then it stopped. He understood, with an absolute clarity he did not have words for, that he had just done a stupid thing. Not a fatal thing. Not a relationship-ending thing, possibly. But a stupid thing. He had hesitated. He had given Jiwoo a key. The key was small, and the door was small, and he was going to take the key back tonight. But he had given it. And the giving of it was the part Jiwoo was going to take with him, and the giving of it was the part Daewon was going to have to live with. He sat down on the floor of his entryway. He put his head in his hands. He did not cry. He had not cried about Jiwoo in weeks. He did not start now. He just sat on the floor and let himself feel exactly how stupid he had been, in detail, in full, with no softening. He had been stupid because the bond had twinged. He had been stupid because he had wanted, for one half breath, to be a person who could be reasonable about a thing he had no obligation to be reasonable about. He had been stupid because he had agreed to the lightest possible version of an ask in order to feel, in front of Owen, like he was not the kind of person who held grudges. And the worst part was that Owen had seen all of it. Owen had felt the hesitation. Owen had put his hand on Daewon's back not to comfort him, but to remind him that he was there, and Daewon had said yes anyway. He sat on the floor for a long time. There was a knock at the door. Soft. "Daewon." He did not answer right away. "Daewon, it is me. Take your time. I am here when you are ready." He pushed himself up. He opened the door. Owen was standing in the hallway with the flowers. "I picked them up," Owen said. "I was going to throw them out in the lobby. I did not want to throw them out without asking you. Some people have feelings about flowers. Throw them out. Okay." Owen set the flowers down outside the door. He came inside. He did not touch Daewon. He stood in the entryway with his hands in his pockets and looked at him and waited. "I did a stupid thing," Daewon said. "I would not call it stupid." "It was stupid. You hesitated. Hesitation is not stupid. Hesitation is the body remembering something. I should have said no. Yes. I knew it was a tactic. I knew the shape of it. I knew that the small ask was the whole point of the ask, and I said yes anyway. Yes. I want you to be honest with me. Are you upset? Owen considered this. He considered it for a long time. He was the kind of person, Daewon had come to understand, who did not give a real answer until he had a real answer. He did not perform feelings. When he gave you something, it was the real thing. I am not upset that you hesitated, Owen said. I am upset that he came here. I am upset that he tracked you down through your friend. I am upset that he stood in your hallway with flowers like that was a normal thing to do. I am not upset with you. I am asking if you are upset that I said yes to him. Are you going to read what he sends? No. Are you going to unblock him after tonight? No. Then I am not upset. I would be upset if you said yes and then read it. I would be very upset if you said yes and then unblocked him and started a back and forth. You said yes to the smallest possible thing. You are going to take it back tonight. That is not the thing I would have done, but I am not the person whose body is doing what your body is doing. I get to have an opinion about it. I do not get to make the decision. That is a very fair answer. I have been thinking about it the whole time I was standing in the hallway. What did you decide? I decided that I am still here. I decided that you handled it as well as you could have given that he ambushed you on a Thursday. I decided that the part I was actually upset about was the part I could not do anything about, which was him being there in the first place, and that taking that out on you would be unfair. And I decided that I trust you to take the key back. Okay. But Daewon, yes. If you do not take the key back, if you read what he sends and then read what he sends after that, if you let him talk you into one phone call to clarify and then a coffee to clarify what you said on the phone, if you let him pull you back in, then I am going to have to think about what that means for me. Because I cannot watch you go back to him in slow motion. I will not be cruel about it. I will not yell at you. I will tell you plainly that I cannot do it, and I will go. Watching it happen is not something I am able to do. Do you understand? Yes. I am not asking you to promise. I do not believe in promises in this. I am telling you what is true for me. I understand. He took a step toward Owen and put his face against Owen's shoulder. Owen, after a moment, put his arms around him. Daewon stood there for a long time with his face against the wool of Owen's shirt, breathing him in. Their scents combined again, the same way they had on the couch. He decided then that he was going to handle this. He was going to take the key back tonight. He was going to be the person who took it back, not the person who had given it. He had been good at hard work his entire life. This was just one more piece of work. He pulled back. He looked at Owen. I am going to do something now, and I want you to stay. Will you stay? Yes. He went to the kitchen counter where he had set his phone down. He picked it up. He opened the messaging app. He went into the blocked list. He found Jiwoo's name. He unblocked it. Then he opened Jiwoo's contact. He waited. The little notification badge appeared after about a minute. A long message. A very long message. Daewon did not open it. He did not even look at the preview. He went back to the contact. He blocked it again. He blocked the email. He blocked the photo sharing app. He went back through every channel he had unblocked and reblocked it. And then he went into his contacts and added Jiwoo to the deleted numbers list. And then he went into his phone settings and turned on a feature he had been told about by someone at work that automatically routed any unknown number to voicemail without ringing. He set it. He confirmed it. He set the phone down. He looked at Owen. Done. You did not read it. I did not read it. How does that feel? Strange. The bond mark just did a small thing. I do not know if it is the body or the brain, but it is quiet now. Okay. I want to say one more thing. Okay. I am sorry I hesitated. I know you said you do not need an apology. I am giving you one anyway. Not because I owe it to you. Because I want to say out loud that I knew it was a tactic and I said yes anyway, and the next time I will not. I want to put that on the record. With you in the room, so that next time I will hear myself saying it. Owen considered this. Okay, he said. Apology noted. On the record. Thank you. For what? For not making me grovel for it. I do not need you to grovel. I know. That is what I am thanking you for. Owen, after a beat, almost smiled. It was a thing he did when he had been caught off guard by something kind. Daewon had decided, some time ago, that he was going to cause it as often as he could. They stayed in for the rest of the night. They did not turn the television back on. They sat on the couch and Owen read on his phone and Daewon read a book, and at some point Daewon's feet ended up in Owen's lap, and Owen, absent-mindedly, put one hand on his ankle, and they stayed like that for a long time. Owen left late. At the door, he kissed the top of Daewon's head, which was a thing he had started doing, and which Daewon had decided he was never going to mention, because the mentioning of it would make it self-conscious, and Owen would stop. Daewon locked the door. He went to bed. He slept. He had one more thing to do. He did it later that week. He sent Jiwoo a single message from a relay number, the kind of throwaway channel that did not let Jiwoo write back. The message named a coffee shop and a time. It said that this would be the only meeting, that the purpose was not reconciliation, was not discussion, was not negotiation. The purpose was for Daewon to say something to him in person, with Jiwoo in front of him, that Daewon needed to say with his own mouth. After that, there would be no further contact by any channel ever. Jiwoo agreed within the hour. Of course he did. Daewon picked the place. A coffee shop near his office in the daytime, in public. He picked the time. He went alone. He told Owen what he was doing the night before. "Do you want me to come?" Owen said. "No, I need to do this alone. Not because I do not trust you, because I do not trust myself unless I do it alone. If you are there, I will be partly performing for you. I need to be only with him so that I am only saying it to him." "Okay. Will you be free after?" "I will be free all day after." "I will come over." "Okay." The coffee shop was bright. Jiwoo was there when Daewon arrived. He had 2 coffees on the table. He had ordered one for Daewon. Daewon noted it and did not touch it. He sat down across from Jiwoo. He set his hands on the table. He did not take off his coat. "I am not staying long," he said. "Okay. I am going to say something. I am not going to respond to anything you say back. I am going to say what I came to say, and I am going to leave. Please do not interrupt me. If you interrupt me, I will leave faster." "Okay. I came here because I needed to say this to your face, so that I know I said it. I am never going to see you again. I am never going to talk to you again. I am never going to read anything you write to me, and the message you sent me on Thursday is still unread, and is going to stay unread until I delete it, which I will do tonight. The bond is gone. I released it. My body is no longer attached to you in any way that matters. I do not love you. I do not think I have loved you for a long time. I think I love the idea of being chosen, and I let you stand in for that idea for 4 years, and I am angry with myself for that. But I am not angry with myself in a way that you get to participate in. You do not get to apologize. You do not get to explain. You do not get to tell me you have changed. You do not get to tell me about the letters in the folder on your computer. You do not get to send flowers. You do not get to come to my building. You do not get to ask anyone in my life how I am doing. You do not get any access to me. Not now, not next year, not when you are 60 and feeling reflective. Not ever. The last time I let you talked me out of something I had seen with my own eyes. I am not letting that happen again. So I came here to say it, in a coffee shop, on a Saturday, with you across the table from me, and then I am walking out. Jiwoo opened his mouth. Daewon stood up. "I am done," he said. "Goodbye." He walked out. He did not look back. He got in his car. He sat in the driver's seat for a long moment with his hands on the wheel. He waited for the wave of regret, the wave of guilt, the thing that Jiwoo had always made him feel after every confrontation, the thing that had made him every time want to call back and apologize. It did not come. He waited longer. It still did not come. He started the car. He drove to Owen's apartment. Owen opened the door in a t-shirt and pajama pants, and his hair was a mess, and he had clearly been waiting because he had nothing in his hands. No laptop, no phone, just himself. "How did it go?" Owen said. "I said it. I left. I'm okay." "Okay. Can I come in?" "You do not have to ask." "I know. I am asking anyway." Owen stepped back. Daewon came in. He took off his coat. He hung it on the hook by Owen's door, where it had hung enough times now to have a place. He took off his shoes. He walked into Owen's living room, past the 3 monitors, past the keyboard collection, past the small framed photograph of Owen's mother on the side table. He sat down on Owen's couch. He patted the cushion next to him. Owen sat down. Daewon leaned over and put his head on Owen's shoulder. They did not say anything for a long time. The bond mark on Daewon's neck was finally quiet. Months later, the season turned the corner. That summer always turns into something hotter than expected. Daewon had moved into Owen's apartment. They had talked about it for weeks before doing it. Owen had made it clear that the 3 monitors had to stay. Daewon had countered that one of them could be relocated to the bedroom for him. Owen had countered that this was an excellent solution and proposed it as if he had thought of it himself. The bedroom acquired a second monitor. The kitchen acquired a second mug. The bookshelves acquired a second person's books. The plant on the windowsill, which had survived against expectation, acquired a sibling. They had not bonded. They had talked about it once, gently, and decided that they were not in a hurry. Daewon had said plainly that he wanted to be sure that the wanting was his and not his body's, and Owen had said plainly that he could wait, and they had left it at that. It would happen when it happened. Or it would not. Either was acceptable. The bond mark on Daewon's neck was completely gone now. There was a faint silver thread if you looked closely. Owen, who had a habit of pressing his lips to Daewon's neck in the morning when Daewon was still half asleep, had once asked very quietly whether the silver bothered him. "No," Daewon had said. "It reminds me what I went through. I do not want to forget it." Owen had nodded against his neck and not said anything else. It was a quiet morning when he understood he was happy. He was at the kitchen counter making coffee. Owen was at the kitchen table reading something on his phone with his glasses sliding down his nose. The plant on the windowsill had a sibling now, and both of them were doing better than expected. The radiator was ticking the way it did on cold mornings, and the apartment smelled of coffee and Owen. He set the coffee in front of Owen. Owen looked up, said thank you, went back to his phone, reached without looking for the sugar. Daewon stood at the counter and watched him. Owen looked up. "You were staring," he said. "I am." "Is something wrong with my face?" "No." "Then why are you staring?" Daewon did not answer. He walked across the kitchen, leaned down and pressed his forehead against the side of Owen's. Owen, after a beat, set his phone down, put a hand on the back of Daewon's neck, held him there. They stayed like that for a while. The end. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the story, tell me your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear from you.